In today's video, I'm going to share with you my recipe for creamy Tuscan chicken. That is a delicious sauce for chicken, but also makes a killer pasta sauce. I'm going to show you just how simple it is to make, and I'll even give you some plating ideas at the end of the video. We're going to start out by seasoning our chicken breasts. I am using a Italian garlic and herb seasoning. You can use something like that, or you could just use salt and pepper, no problem. You may, if you're using one of those really thick chicken breasts, you may want to slice it in half or butterfly it or pound it thin. It does help it cook a little quicker, and I do have a tutorial on how to do that. Now we're going to sear our chicken in the same pan that we'll be building our cream sauce in. So we'll put it over medium to medium-high heat and throw a couple of tablespoons of oil in there just to get a nice thin coating on the bottom of the pan. Now once the oil has gotten hot enough that you hear a loud sizzle when you add your chicken to the pan, we can go ahead and sear off the chicken several minutes per side until it's nice and golden brown on each side like these. Now depending on how hot your pan is, this could take anywhere from 3 minutes per side to 6 or 7 minutes per side. It really just depends on the heat of the pan. You're just looking for a nice golden brown sear on each side of the chicken. And if your chicken is thin enough, you may be able to cook it all the way through to 165 degrees internal temperature during the searing process. If your chicken has not cooked through all the way after searing it, you could either let it simmer in the sauce as the sauce reduces and have it cook through that way, or you can put them on a sheet tray and cook them until they reach an internal temperature of 165 degrees. We have all this flavor built up in the browned bits on the bottom of the pan we use to sear the chicken. So I want to pull up all those brown bits and make sure that flavor is in our finished sauce. So I'm going to start sauteing onions directly in this pan. And as the onions sweat, the water from the onions will help deglaze the pan and pull those brown bits up. Now I'm also using a metal spatula at this point because it will help me scrape up some of the more stubborn bits on the bottom of the pan that don't come up quite as easily. Now I'm really looking to have these onions sort of melt into the sauce rather than being distinct onion pieces. So I'm going to saute them for 7 to 10 minutes till they're nice and soft. Now you'll notice I've got these 2 chicken breasts sitting here in a sheet tray next to my pan. These are chicken that have cooked all the way through and reached that 165 degrees, and we just want to reserve those until we are at the end of making our sauce. Now if you're going to finish your chicken in the sauce when we reduce it, then you'll also just reserve those until you're ready to put them in to cook them. Next, we're going to add the garlic into the pan, and you'll notice I switched out from a metal spatula to a rubber spatula. That's just a preference of mine. But we're going to saute the garlic for 30 seconds to a minute just until you can begin to smell it. And at that point, we're going to finish deglazing the pan with white wine. Now, as you pour the white wine in, this is going to do a much better job of fully deglazing the pan. So if there's still some bits you haven't quite gotten out, the wine is going to take care of the rest. With the wine added, we're going to raise the temperature of the pan up to about medium-high. We want to get this wine going at a high simmer because we're trying to reduce it down, get rid of that alcohol flavor, and also concentrate the flavor of the wine. So we want it to be syrupy at the end. We've reduced it all the way down to a syrup, or even almost dry at the bottom of the pan. And when you've gotten to that point, we can go ahead and add the spinach. The spinach is going to look like a ton of spinach when you first put it in, and it is, but spinach will cook down a ton. So as you're sauteing the spinach, it will begin to wilt and reduce in size drastically. And we just want to saute this spinach until it wilts. Once it wilts, we're going to throw in the sun-dried tomatoes. Now we're only going to saute the sun-dried tomatoes with the spinach and onion mixture for just a couple of minutes. Really, we're just trying to evaporate any liquid that's still left over in the bottom of the pan. We want it to go a little bit closer to dry on the bottom of the pan before we add the cream. Now once we have added the cream, we'll just give it a nice stir to combine everything nicely. And then we want to find a simmer on this cream sauce. Keep in mind that cream is notorious for boiling over if you're not paying attention. So just keep an eye on the sauce as you're trying to find and maintain a gentle simmer on the sauce. And then once you have, now would be the time, if you are planning on finishing your chicken breasts in the sauce to cook it through, now would be the time to add it. You're just going to cook it until the internal temperature of the chicken reaches 165 and then pull it out of the sauce so that your chicken does not overcook. Now, whether you've cooked your chicken in the sauce or in the oven, either way, we still need to reduce our sauce to the point where it can coat the back of a spoon. The chefy term for this is nappe, but basically you're going to take your spatula or your spoon, whatever you're stirring with, and dip it in the sauce and then draw a line horizontally across the back of the spoon. And if that sauce is thick enough that it doesn't immediately drip through the line, it's able to hold a clean line on the back of the spoon, you've reached the thickness you're looking for, and we can go ahead and turn the heat off on the sauce or pull it off of the heat, and then we'll be ready to add the Parmesan cheese. Now, the reason I turn the heat off of the cream sauce before adding the Parmesan cheese is it's just a good general rule to follow. If you're going to melt cheese into a cream sauce, especially softer cheeses like cheddar or Gruyere, you want to do it while it's not at a simmer. A simmering cream sauce is much more likely to break. Once the Parmesan has combined nicely with the sauce, we're going to go ahead and taste it and see if we want to add any salt or black pepper. As a general rule, if it tastes a little bit bland at this point, just go ahead and add a little bit of salt or add a little bit more Parmesan cheese to your taste preferences. So now our sun-dried tomato cream sauce is finished, and we could always just spoon it over our chicken and serve it as an accompanying sauce. It works great like that. But it's also a really nice pasta sauce. So while the cream sauce was reducing, I started a pot of spaghetti. And once the spaghetti is done, I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of the pasta water into the sauce. And then I'm going to toss my pasta in this spaghetti sauce. Now, I'm using spaghetti because I have a kid that loves spaghetti, but you could also use fettuccine or penne, whatever you want, really. I'm just going to add as much sauce as I like on my pasta. If you like a really saucy pasta, you can add more. If you like it really lightly sauced, you can add less, but this is just your preference. I cooked a full package of spaghetti, and there was plenty of this sauce to coat the spaghetti and dress it nicely and still have some to sauce the top of the chicken as well. Now, I could certainly chop up the chicken that I've cooked and toss it all in with the pasta and make one big dish. And that's a great way to go. But if you think you might enjoy playing with some fancier plating ideas, let me show you some garnishes you can use and some ways you could plate this to make it look a little bit fancier. Now, as I plate my pasta, I'm just going to spin the bowl underneath the pasta as I slowly let go with my tongs. This just kind of keeps the pasta together a little bit better, keeps it from spreading out too much. And once I've got that on there, I'm going to come over the top of it and add a little bit more sauce. I don't want the pasta to eat dry, so I'm adding just a little bit more sauce. And then I'm going to fan out the sliced chicken on one side of the mound of pasta. Now, you could always top this with sauce as well if you'd like, but this chicken is super moist. I don't feel the need to do that, so I'm going to leave it as is. And now I'm going to garnish with some extra julienne sun-dried tomatoes. Gives it a pop of color and a little bit more sun-dried tomato flavor. You can add a little bit more Parmesan cheese at this point too, give it a little bit more parmy of a flavor, which is always good. And then lastly, I'm just going to sprinkle over some chiffonade basil, which if you like to know how to do that, I do have a short tutorial on how to chiffonade basil, but these thin basil threads just give it a nice elevated look, and the basil flavor goes really well with this sun-dried tomato cream sauce. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video or learned something, please don't forget to like and subscribe.